doing another episode of Landlord Balderdash, the podcast game show where I try to trip Steve up. I give him two stories. These are landlord stories. One of them is real and one of them is fake. It's Landlord Balderdash. And it is on Steve White of RentPrep here sitting with me to guess which one is real and which one is Balderdash.
This is Landlord Balderdash, the game where you guess which landlord story is real and which one is Balderdash.
Steve, are you ready to play again?
Eric, this is my turn. I'm 0-2 right now. I can't take another loss here. This is it. I'm getting this one for sure. I'm ready to roll.
You know, I should have done a better job with creating a rule book for this game when I developed it, because I don't know what a whitewash is considered in Landlord Balderdash. Is it maybe like 5, or is it like ping pong? What's ping pong? Usually like you get to 11?
Yeah, it ain't going to get that bad. Don't worry. I'm getting this one.
All right. So here is your first story, Stephen.
Ready?
All right. My high school gym teacher would buy and rehab rental properties. The weird part was he was always renting out his apartments to former students down the line. They were usually the messed up kids in high school, and there were tons of rumors flying around of why he would rent to these former students who were still pretty young. Pretty horrific gossip spread through the school to the point that the parents got involved, and it came to a head at a PTO meeting. He was asked to be at the meeting, and it turns out he was renting to these students because he lost a loved one to drug abuse, and he knew what these kids were dealing with. He would charge them a reduced rent and then use the proceeds to help get them to counseling and even transportation to and from work. Turns out he was pretty much a saint, and everyone was spreading gossip about him. From what my parents told me, you could hear a pin drop at the PTO meeting when he explained his situation. He still teaches there and owns something like 15 rentals that are all former students from bad situations to rehab their lives.
It's pretty awesome. I'm hoping that one's true. That's a great story.
All right, now in the next story. My dad was a landlord who allowed his mother, who he wasn't very close with and had a lot of husbands abandon her, to rent because he had nowhere to go. She had a wonderful way for words, and she managed to convince my father to let her own 2 of the houses in the apartment. 4 years later, she filed a case claiming ownership of the entire apartment. She won the case because my dad's father, who is deceased, who owned the apartment, was still legally married to her. A few months later, our father managed to claim the apartment back because apparently his mother was legally dead, which was twisted. She filed her name in as officially dead so she could receive the death pension. Since she's dead, ownership was given back to my father.
Wow. This is a tough one. Okay, here's my thought process picking here. I have heard unfortunately, a lot of stories of family situations gone bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely heard. We get calls pretty frequently about people wanting to evict parents, kids, whatever. It's a bad situation. Maybe they entered the lease on a verbal agreement because they were related and now things have gone bad and they're not really sure what to do because this person didn't take the typical path of tenancy. So that second one I'm going to go with is the believable. That one is actually real. The first one, unfortunately, I think is Balderdash. And here's my only reasoning why. Great story. Love it. Heartwarming. I may have even gotten chills hearing you tell the story. But you said PTO meeting and not PTA meeting. I've got a kid. All right. I picked up on that immediately. And I'm like, PTO meeting? That's wrong.
Maybe it was subliminal. I need some paid time off.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. I didn't realize I did that.
Yeah.
Can you tell I don't have a child in school yet? You know?
Yeah, exactly. You don't get hit up to join the PTA every single month. I'm going to say the first one based on that. And, again, I've seen enough of the situations with family members having it go bad. We see a lot of people using either a deceased status or a deceased person's social security number and information. So that one is pretty believable. I'm going to say it's a bad situation, but I think that is the real story.
Steve, believe it or not, you are correct.
Oh, thank God I got one right here. But you know what? I don't even feel good about it because I want the first story to be right. I love when landlords attach a cause to what they're doing. We saw it when we did an interview with Isabel Shapiro from Peace Prince.
Yep.
And she runs that program that helps place people who were convicted of crimes and coming out of prison and help place them in a place to live. And she works with a lot of landlords. And that's a great story, too. If you're the type of landlord that believes in that cause and you want to have a huge impact in someone's life, I feel like this is one of the most direct ways you can. Obviously, there's some risk involved with it, but things work out. You're a hero to somebody, and that's awesome.
Yeah, just to inform our viewers or listeners, that's episode 140 is the Peace Prince episode that Steve's talking about. And that was a pretty interesting episode listening to Isabella talk about their situation there of helping these people that have been incarcerated find rentals. And, I'm just kind of thinking of this now because the next episode we had was 141 where we talked to Dr. Roger Firestein about vision setting. And if I've heard this before that if you're looking for motivation in something that you're doing, right, a lot of people are motivated by money, at least they think they are. And then they realize that once they hit these achievements that it kind of feels kind of empty when you get there. And the reasoning being is they don't have like a deeper meaning to their work or the things that they're doing. So one thing that I'm wondering is I wonder if for landlords, let's say this particular story, you know what, there's a good chance it is true. I'm sure somewhere there is a landlord who does this because he wants to help people and he puts them in a good situation. You can think about the amount of juice and the energy that you would get in that situation because your motivation isn't being created just by money and income, but it's also being created by positively affecting these people's lives. So it might be something to consider for your own rental business. Maybe there's some sort of charity or organization that you want to contribute to that kind of just provides more meaning for your work. So you're not just like when you're dealing with that headache tenant or something like that, you're like, you know what, there's more than money on the line here. There's other things involved.
Yeah. It's funny when I think about it. Some of the most successful people that I know in terms of how most people consider success, they make a ton of money. They've had successful real estate ventures. Things just seem to work out for them, right? Man, it's really split. The majority of them, though, that I feel like I know pretty well, pretty empty, miserable people at the end of the day. They just don't have that happiness that you think that they would have having everything, One guy I know has this personal garage of classic cars that I would literally consider killing somebody for. I mean, these gorgeous cars.
Steve, these are recorded.
I know. I'm sorry.
Don't implicate yourself down the line.
I'm a car fanatic, and I see this, and I'm like, oh my God. And it's just a guy that you rarely see smile. You rarely see him just seem to enjoy himself. There's something missing there. There's something empty there. And I think he's the type of person that would probably feel a lot better and a lot more successful in his life if he knew that he was having a bigger impact. At the end of the day, he's gotten everything that he's set out to achieve. And now it's kind of like, now what? It's kind of like the Olympians, that reach their peak when they're 19, 20 years old. And now you got the rest of your life to be like, well, now what the heck do I do? So I think for landlords, having a meaning, a deeper motivation, like you said, or maybe your vision includes really helping out your community. Landlords have amazing potential to have a huge impact on their own communities, whether they realize it or not. So I think that, a good call to action for all landlords would just consider how you can potentially help your community or a cause that maybe you feel pretty passionate about. And you might be able to make a connection between what you're doing in real estate and how you might be able to make a bigger impact. I promise you that you will find some value, meaning, something that you find meaning in your own life, personally and professionally, if you see that through.
Yeah, I know I've read that before where if you're having a bad day in general, like the best thing you can do is just do something for somebody else.
Yeah.
And just that act and seeing that kindness kind of come out of you to them, you get more in return from doing that. Without turning this into a completely sappy episode of Landlord Balderdash, but I feel like we could probably talk an entire podcast just about, kind of that empty landlord feeling where maybe you've built this real estate empire, but you kind of still feel a little bit empty inside. So something to consider.
Yeah, I challenge any landlord out there listening, make that first story true, please. I want to know that that's actually a real thing. That was a heartwarming story. I hope that is happening somewhere.
Yeah, and if you do have a story like that, a heartwarming landlord story, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
you can definitely submit that just directly to my email. It would be fine, eric@rentprep.com. Even if we don't use it on the podcast, it would be awesome just to read that and hear some of that good news.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's official. I broke the losing streak, and I am now 2-1. I'm on my way up.
Whoa. You're not 2-1, Steve. I'm 2-1.
Yeah, I'm 1-2.
Yeah, well, you're 1-2.
I'm on the. I've got the momentum now. So this is it. This is where I take off with this.
All right, guys.
Keep slipping up with little things like PTO and PTA, and you're going to make it easy on me.
Well, I was reading the second story too, and I feel like you could probably tell because I was like having trouble reading it because it wasn't in my own words, and I was like, man, I should really proofread these things so I'm not stumbling through it. Well, it was a really weird situation. I mean, who has deceased and then death pension, and sadly, it's true. So
it happens. We see it.
You got me this time, Steve.
Yeah. All right. Till next time, Eric.
All right.